The horse set, it's such a great product. And, horses were never designed to be in the situation we have them in. They were designed to be wild and roam, 90% of the time. They're moving, they're eating, and they're not resting that often. Horses are prey animals, so, they want to keep moving. And if you see a group of horses in a herd, there's some laying down, there's some standing up because they're protecting each other. So to be able to bring this product to a horse and give that horse, 5, 10, or 15 minutes of just relaxation a day is really amazing.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Longevity Lounge. My name is Ben.
And I'm Caylee.
And today we have a wonderful guest, Megan Smith, who is the head of Equine Sales for North America for the BEMER Group.
Yes, and we are diving into equine longevity today, which might sound crazy, but we've been dying to dive into it. We talk all about the BEMER horse set and Megan, how she's ended up in BEMER from being a vet tech to pharmaceutical equine sales to now with BEMER. So we're so excited, and we learn all about horses today, which is not something that Ben and I are well versed on. So if you don't know about horses, if you do know about horses, this is a great episode for you. So let's dive in.
Okay, welcome, Megan. We're so glad to have you with us on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here, and sorry I can't be in Utah with you.
I know, it would be wonderful. The weather here is glorious on this beautiful afternoon. So,
Yeah.
But we're excited to jump into your experience that's brought you together with us today, and also learn a little bit more about what you've been able to experience in the world of equine. You've grown up with horses and you own horses, and your daughter who is already on horses. Fill us in a little bit about your experience getting into this world with riding and just enjoying these beautiful animals.
Yeah, I mean, horses were pretty much bred into me. My grandparents used to breed and train horses, and I was on, Paisley actually beat me to it. So she was younger than I was when she first was on the back of a horse. So I pretty much, grew up on the back of a horse. My grandparents had a farm. We lived in New York when I was younger before my parents got divorced and we moved to New Jersey. And we would always come down. I would, ride my nanny's horses and ride with her, which was always awesome. And then I started taking lessons when I was 4.
Wow.
And then when we moved to New Jersey, I always wanted my horses in my backyard because that's how my nanny had them. And it was, just so cool. So when we moved to New Jersey, we actually moved in with my grandparents for a little while. So I got to have my horses in my backyard. And that's how I've always wanted them. I've, always bought properties once, I've graduated from college where I could have them with me and have them in my backyard, which is awesome.
Yeah. And Paisley, like, how young was she when she got onto the back of a horse?
She was 13 weeks when she was first on on Patrony pony. So
that's so crazy.
And she
Megan
loved it. It was, from the start. And now it's, as soon as we go out there, the other morning she woke up and she looked at the barn and she said, ride.
Yeah.
So she just says ride on repeat until you put her on the horse, which is great.
That's beautiful.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Now you've not just grown up with them. It's kind of multi-generational experience here with horses, but certainly that your love for horses brought you into your career. And you started out as a veterinary technician. What brought you into that space?
So I had wanted to go to vet school since I was about 5 years old. That was my dream. And I wanted to be an equine veterinarian. So after graduating from college, I needed some small animal experience for my vet school application. And I originally, wanted to take a year off between college and vet school. So I had worked for a small animal hospital as a veterinary technician. And that experience led me to not go to vet school. And I then took a position as an equine veterinary technician at a college in New Jersey. So I worked with the veterinarian, and they had 100 college-owned horses. I got to teach some riding lessons. I got to manage a team of work-study students. The veterinarian I worked for, he also had his own practice, so I would help him. He was a surgeon, so I got to do surgery with him, which was awesome. And, it was a really great experience, and I don't regret not going to vet school. I often think, I would have been a great veterinarian, but I think my career turned out well, despite, not exactly following my dreams to the full extent. So,
yeah.
That's so crazy. Was there anything specific? Because I don't have a similar experience with large animals, but I did a high school internship because I always wanted to be a vet. Same as you. I grew up wanting to be a vet and thought that it would just be like the best career. I don't think it ever occurred to me that animals got sick or passed away in this dream. So when I did my internship, I had some of those experiences and was like, okay, I can't even imagine doing this every day. Was there a specific moment like that for you where you thought, oh, I don't want to be a veterinarian, or just your career trajectory changed?
It was honestly more of the happiness level and the financial aspect. So the veterinarians I worked for, I won't say all of them, but there was quite a few that were really unhappy with their lives. And when you graduate from vet school, you're not making a ton of money. Yeah. So to be in that much debt and not be happy, I was like, why do I want to do that? Now, granted, I probably shouldn't have based my decision on that one experience because I knew a lot of very happy equine veterinarians, which is where I wanted to be. But that's really the decision. And I was like, listen, I don't think I can spend that much money to potentially not be happy. And that was really the main decision and main reason why I decided not to go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense just from healthcare workers, what we know about healthcare workers, just having such a hard time dealing with people on their worst day, dealing with
it's going to be emotionally taxing.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Yeah,
because
a lot in like the veterinary industry. There's compassion fatigue, especially on the small animal side. I mean, you're putting down, like to Caylee's point, pets 4, 5, 6 times a day, depending on the volume of the practice. And, between that and now in the equine veterinary world with like overtime and, wanting to have a family and needing like that work-life balance, the veterinary industry as a whole it's been struggling for a couple years. So yeah, it's tough, and I give them a lot of credit. And, that's why I always fly my flag for veterinarians because, they really wear their heart on their sleeves all day, every day. And, they deserve as much compassion towards them as they show towards the animals.
Yeah. It's a really heart-centered role, isn't it, to play? So you moved away from being a technician into the pharmaceutical side for veterinary practice. Tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I absolutely. So I worked for a company called Zoetis, which they're the largest animal health company in the world. They originally were Pfizer's animal health company, and then Pfizer sold off their animal health division, which became Zoetis. And they're the only standalone animal health company out there. Most of them are backed by human pharma. So, it's kind of cool to see how that company that's, standalone does up against the others with human pharma, because we know that's where all the money is, right? And I absolutely loved my time at Zoetis. I was a territory sales rep. I covered New Jersey, Long Island, Eastern Pennsylvania, Eastern Maryland, Delaware, and the Hudson Valley.
Dang.
I did that for about 6 years, and I worked directly with veterinarians. So I sold them our equine product line, which I loved because Zoetis really focuses on the science behind their product. So I really liked being able to educate the veterinarian on what our product does. And not only does it do what we say it does, we can prove that. And then, they had excellent customer support. So we always backed up our products and stood behind them 100%. So it was a really great experience. And I really loved my time there, from the veterinarians to my coworkers. It was a really great experience.
Yeah, nice.
That's awesome.
And you've moved from there now into BEMER, where you run their equine sales division here in North America. And BEMER, we've had a few guests on the show in the past that are, Olympic athletes and motocross riders and, doctors and scientists and what have you that have talked about their experience with BEMER. But one area that we haven't really touched on yet is how BEMER shows up in the equine world. Do you want to fill us in, the bridge that got you from where you were into BEMER and what your experience has been with a very different type of technology here, right?
Yeah, so I just happened to be scrolling through LinkedIn one day, and this job popped up, Equine Sales Director at BEMER Group. And I had heard about BEMER. I didn't own one for my horse, but I'd heard about the product. I read the job description and I was like, kind of sounds like that was written for me. So I ended up applying and, luckily found myself here. And, it's been a really great experience. The product is amazing for horses. The human line is fantastic as well. I use the human line every day. But the horse set, it's such a great product. And horses were never designed to be in the situation we have them in. They were designed to be wild and roam, 90% of the time. They're moving, they're eating, and they're not resting that often. Horses are prey animals, so, they want to keep moving. And if you see a group of horses in a herd, there's some laying down, there's some standing up because they're protecting each other. So to be able to bring this product to a horse and give that horse, 5, 10, or 15 minutes of just relaxation a day is really amazing. And the horses appreciate it so much. So it's been a really cool journey to hear all of the stories, from our users. And you mentioned Olympic athletes on the human side, and we have that on the equine side too. We've had a ton of ambassadors that are at that Olympic level using BEMER on their horses every day. And, from the top to the bottom, everybody can benefit from it.
So for the listeners that are listening for the first time or that are horse owners, for example, that are less familiar with BEMER's technology, what does it do? What does the BEMER horse set do for the horse when you say you give them those 15 minutes of great relaxed time? Walk us through the experience.
So what it does is it helps the PEMF signal. The patented waveform that BEMER has is unique. It's not like any traditional waveform that these other units have. And that waveform allows us to have a low intensity product. A lot of other products on the market, they talk about their depth of penetration or the intensity of their product. And our signal allows us to deliver it at a low intensity and a low frequency. And what that helps the horse do is it doesn't force them into a parasympathetic state, but it helps them make the decision to put themselves in there. So, a lot of people talk about, oh, it'll do it, but the horse has to allow that to happen. So, if you use it on a younger horse or a horse that's not had it before, sometimes it takes 1 or 2 sessions before you see the horse like truly get into that parasympathetic state. When they're in that state, they're completely relaxed and, just enjoying the 5, 10, or 15 minutes that they don't have to worry or be on high alert. So, that's the thing that I would say separates BEMER from the other products on the market is it's super quick, 5, 10, 15 minutes. It's not a long process. And, it's a lower intensity where, they're targeting the micro blood vessels. So we're not targeting, depth. We're not trying to get to like a certain depth inside the horse. It's more just surface level, for lack of a better term. Sure. And because of the signal targeting those smaller blood vessels that run through the entire body, we're able to do that with that signal.
It seems like the low intensity piece is so important for the topic that you bring up of horses are prey animals. So it's so hard for them to be in that parasympathetic state, and BEMER putting them in that seems like, or giving them the option if they want to enter that state, seems like a really cool, unique point about BEMER versus the other products.
Yeah, absolutely. That and the convenience. I mean, I had another PEMF product prior to coming to BEMER. I never used it. Not to say anything bad about the product other than it just wasn't convenient to use. With BEMER, so easy. You literally put a blanket, cuffs, and a neck applicator on. I'll groom my horse. I throw the BEMER on. I go grab my tack. I get myself dressed, switch the cuffs, to the other legs. And then by the time that's done, I'm ready. I ride. And then I come back and I do the same routine untacking. So it's really nice, even if you're only doing it 3 or 4 times a week, to do it twice, 3 or 4 times a week is huge for the horse.
Yeah. And what does that look like? So with your horses, tell our listeners the name of your horses first.
So I have 4. We have a Patrony pony, who is a 8-year-old miniature horse. She's about 30 inches at the withers. I got her right before quarantine in 2020, so we both quarantined together.
So sweet.
And then we have Azie, who is a 7-year-old Azteca. I have Remi, who is a 3-year-old quarter horse, and then we just got Paisley, a pony, who is Zoey, and she's just a little over a year, and she's a medium pony.
Oh my gosh.
That's gorgeous.
I love hearing everyone's horses' names too. It's like my hobby. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. Patrony pony just happens to be at the very, very tip top of my list though, by the way. So what does that look like when you're kind of describing the situation of how simple it is to use BEMER, but what does that look like for your horses? Like, what is their reaction to putting the blanket, the neck applicator, and the cuffs on them? How do they react?
They love it. I will be honest, my horse, Azie, she's a very sensitive horse. She's also always on high alert. She came from a not great situation, so she has a lot of trust issues that we've been working through a lot of different ways. And when I first put the BEMER on her, she didn't have the reaction that you typically see. You know, she wasn't eyes half closed, ears drooping, head down. She was like, I don't know. And she had a different reaction with the other products, but again, they were higher intensity. So I have learned with her, now she's fine with the program 1 or the 5-minute program, but in the beginning, she liked the higher intensity better. Now I can use any program and get the same reaction from her. And because she was in a stressful situation, she actually has the habit of cribbing, which is a very undesirable habit in the equine world, but she has it and we love her anyway. When she has the BEMER on, she does not crib. And since using BEMER, I would say it has reduced her cribbing. I mean, there's times when she's like a fiend and doing it every 3 seconds, but most of the time it does make a slight difference in her desire to want to crib 24/7.
And what is cribbing? Is that their bite, right?
So hers is more like a wind sucking, but she puts her front teeth on something hard and then she goes and like makes this awful sucking posture. So when you think of it, I mean, everything, all of the muscles in her neck, back, head, they're working 100 times a day because she does it all the time. So to be able to use BEMER on a horse like her is amazing because I'm sure her muscles have gotten used to it, but I got to imagine it's not the most comfortable habit to live with.
Yeah. And is that just a stress response to the situations that she's been in before you got her?
Yeah. So cribbing it's hard to explain what it is. There's actually not a lot of research around, what causes it. Yeah. In the recent years, they've had more, but it used to be a thought of, were they stressed? Were they bored? Did they see a horse do it? They've come to say that you can't see a horse and learn to crib. So if any of our other horses see her, they're not going to pick up the habit of cribbing. But what it does is it releases endorphins. And so it kind of puts them in a happy place when they do it. And that's why they continue to do it. So she picked it up. However, my guess is because she's super sensitive and she was in a stressful situation that was like her 5 seconds of freedom. And that's where it started. But it's a lifelong habit. They don't grow out of it or get rid of it.
That's
which
crazy.
it's very unfortunate. But
yeah. So when your horses are using BEMER, you say they respond, they love it, they enjoy it. But what's the typical impact of using BEMER consistently? You said using it a few times a week is really important. What is the benefit, first off, of consistency? And then what is the outcome of typical for someone using it consistently?
Yeah, so the more you use the product, the more it builds up in the body. So the consistent use is what you want. You don't want to put BEMER on, once a week or once every 3 weeks or whenever you're thinking about it, which I'll be honest, I've done. When I get a little lazy or it gets a little cold, I'm like, I'm not going to put that on today. It's 5 minutes in the freezing cold. I'm not riding. But when you do that, you start to see that the effects, you get the instant effects of the head dropping, the relaxing, but you're not getting the systemic effects of it working within the body. So you really want to use it consistently so that the blood is flowing, freely throughout the entire body. There's a detox principle to it too. So when you're getting rid of like all of the quote unquote junk in the horse's body and everything is just flowing and working efficiently and effectively, you see that over time, the more you use BEMER. So you really do want to use it on a consistent basis so that that systemic response is happening, even though you don't see it, but you'll still see, the outside initial response to BEMER when you use it, even just once a week.
And I think the initial thought is, at least from my perspective, it seems like people with performance horses that are, competing or in rodeos and whatnot, it seems like that they see the value, but maybe everyday people who just have horses at their farm or in their backyard, like you're saying, maybe walk us through that. What does that look like? I'm not a horse owner, so kind of explain that one to me like I'm 5.
Well, and I think that's a really good point. Is BEMER started off, they were marketed to performance horses, and performance horses aren't the only market for BEMER. They love it in the performance horse industry because it helps the horses recover faster. I mean, if you get up and run a mile, you're going to be sore the next day. So if you put a BEMER on your horse after they've had a hard workout, they're going to feel even better, 2 days later. Really, it's not the next day. You still feel great. It's the second day when it sneaks up on you. So that's really helpful in the performance industry. But I mean, every horse needs BEMER, every domesticated horse, in my opinion. And I think that's kind of where we're taking BEMER now, is to that, I hate to call them backyard horses because they're not backyard horses. They're more than that. But I mean, the companion horses, the trail horses, the retired horses, they all can benefit from BEMER because, like I said, not only are you getting that relaxation and getting them in that parasympathetic state, you're getting the systemic benefits of BEMER as well. And horses' digestive tract was very poorly designed. So to be able to do anything to improve, their quality of life and the way their body's functioning is pretty great.
Yeah. Now, you've worked with a lot of vets, a lot of horse owners, and like you mentioned, horse owners from all walks of life. So you've seen a lot of different reactions and experiences with the BEMER. What are some that really grabbed your attention and had an impact on you as you were working with them?
I would say, honestly, my horse is probably the biggest. And that's just because it's really helped her be able to trust us. Well, I shouldn't say us. Really, everybody but me. She loved me, but she didn't love everybody else. And now I actually had a friend of mine. She came over to look at one of our ponies. She actually took her on a lease for her daughters. And we walked out into the field, and Azie really disliked men the most. And we walked out, and I pet her, and she pet her, and her daughters pet her. And then I turned around, and her husband was petting her. And I was like, is she letting you pet her? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. So, to be able to get a horse that used to run from you when you walked in the paddock to now coming up to strangers, especially men that she really disliked, is pretty great. And, those are little things that most people probably wouldn't pick up on. Like I said, they instantly see the horses relax. But when you get to take a step back, and like I said, I live with them. I watch them all day while I'm working, and to see how they change and, how they're welcoming of other horses. It's really hard to bring other horses into the herd. And when we brought Zoey in, I originally didn't put her with Azie because I was like, oh, she's going to be mean to her. And it turns out that's where I needed to put her, because now they're best friends and they literally eat with their faces next to each other. So I would say that's probably the biggest, change I've heard of and seen is my own experience.
That's probably huge for you too, because like you said, you're with them so often that when you see a behavior shift like that, I can't imagine the training and the time and the trust that it takes to build up to make those changes. So just seeing that, where it seems like the effort that you had to put in was, just being consistent with using the BEMER and building that relationship with her where she knows that that's coming from you. That's really cool.
Yeah, we've done a lot with a natural horsemanship trainer, and he hates that term, but I mean, that's what I call him. But in the last couple months, she's made a huge shift. And I'll be honest, that's where I've been using BEMER even more consistently. I always did it once before, but now I'm doing it, before and after when I do whatever with her. And it's made a huge difference in, how she's acting just overall.
Yeah. And what does typical usage look like? You mentioned a couple times a day. Is it, what do you do? And then what's kind of recommended?
Yeah, I use mine before and after I do anything with them. So if I'm just grooming them, just groom them, throw the BEMER on for 5 minutes. I'll be honest, a lot of the time I use the 5 or 10 minutes because it's just more convenient for me and I see great results from it. 15 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but sometimes you're standing there and you're like, man, it's 20 minutes. I know they're wrong with these timers. But so I usually use like the 5 or 10 minutes. So if it's just grooming, I'll just groom them and throw it on. And then if I'm going to ride, I'll do it before and then I'll do it after I ride as well. So once I get them groomed or, washed off or whatever, then I'll throw the BEMER back on for a couple minutes while they're in their stall. And I'll do a different intensity. So if I do 5 minutes before, I'll do 10 minutes after or vice versa. I don't use the same. Not that there's any rhyme or reason for that. That's just kind of my protocol.
Awesome.
Do you see vets use it as a part of their practice? Is that something that is common there as they're treating horses?
So we're seeing it become more and more used in the veterinary industry. I don't want to talk about too many uses for it that somebody will say, well, Megan said it on the podcast, we could do it. But, a lot of horses have an anxiety when it comes to veterinarians. So putting that on before a horse is seen by a veterinarian can help. Horses sometimes get sore or stiff after a vaccine. So using it before you're getting your horse vaccinated would help with that. In theory, I'm not going to say it does, but in theory,
makes a lot of sense.
Help, right? And a lot of the time with injuries, obviously getting blood flow to an area of an injury is really important for healing. So to be able to have a product that helps increase and, the quality of the blood flow is helpful to, help horses heal. So yes, it is, more widespread in the veterinary industry. And I think as we do more research and we bring it to more places in the veterinary industry, I think we'll see it take off even more.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. I think I love too. I've seen so many pictures of so many different sizes of horses using BEMER, and that doesn't seem to matter. I think probably my all-time favorite photo, like I mentioned earlier, is the photo of Patrony pony, which is Megan's mini that she talked about, with the leg cuffs that are going like clear to her shoulders. They look like thigh-high boots. What difference does it make a difference for smaller, bigger horses? Is there any size horse can use a BEMER?
Yeah, so BEMER is fully adjustable. So as you can see with Patron, it literally is a full body because it comes up, even was on the ground because she's so tiny. And if you put the neck applicator on her, it's literally from ears to tail, whole body. But the BEMER is adjustable. So you can take the blanket and, wrap it around the minis and you can put it on, we have it on huge Clydesdales and Belgians and it works just as well on every size, which is also nice because if you have a variety of sizes like I do, you literally have a one-size-fits-all product, which is convenient and more affordable.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just have one that you can use at your personal barn, or if you have multiple horses like you do, you can just use one BEMER horse set for all of your horses.
Yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier to be able to have just one. Not everybody needs their own BEMER, which is really nice.
But it seems like it would be a great Christmas present for your horses if you each have their own.
We actually have a distributor who sells a BEMER with her horses when she sells them, which I think is genius because the horses are used to it in their daily routine and they perform the way they do because they are used to having BEMER. They live comfortably because they're used to having BEMER. So to be able to sell that with the horse, I think is genius.
Yeah, that's smart.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that we, in veterinary practice, it's, maybe a common experience if someone's using BEMER to use it before they, bring the vet in to support them or what have you. But people are using, obviously, horses for lots of different reasons, and they compete with horses, in all sorts of different disciplines. Are there any disciplines that stand out to you where horses are used for competing, where you see BEMER's been having a really strong impact?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of eventers that use BEMER. We have a lot of hunter jumper riders, barrel racers. I mean, all of those dressage riders, all of those sports are really hard. I mean, honestly, they're all hard on the horse except trail riding, unless your horse is super sensitive. I mean, then that's hard on them too. So, to have those BEMER for those sports that are really hard on, or disciplines that are really hard on the horse, is great because it's going to improve the longevity of the horse's career if you can keep them healthy and, keep the blood flowing the way it should and everything. You're going to extend the career. I mean, when I was a kid, horses weren't performing into their 20s. That was like 15 was old. And then, now horses are performing into their mid to late 20s easily. If you have a horse that can do that, having BEMER on board only makes it that much easier and, that much better for them and their future. Great medicine and, changing and how we care for them and how we do everything for them has helped us get to that point. But I mean, BEMER's kind of like the next step. So if you can get them here, BEMER's really going to help you get there, which is great.
I love that. That highlights such an important point to the longevity for horses, right? Because at the end of the day, these people are competing with them, right? But so many, they love them. Like that's their companion, and you want them to live the longest, healthiest possible life. And so BEMER can help with that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're part of a lot of people, there's some people that don't feel that way, but they're a part of your life and your teammate, and you want that partnership to continue as long as it can, because, look at all of the work and time it's taken to get to the point of where you feel like they're at the top of their game. Yeah. You don't want to start over with another one. So if you can prolong that career and that relationship, or give it the ability to step down to something, lighter, teach a kid, how to go around a 2-foot course and, still have a job and help the next generation, is great to have a horse be able to do that comfortably.
Yeah. And money, right? Because it's expensive to train a horse and invest a lot of money and time into them.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, obviously you use BEMER a lot. We've talked about BEMER a lot today, but as a lover of horses, because I see certainly if you've got 4, and the way it sounds is you've gotten your daughter on at 13 weeks, which is incredible. So awesome. That this is something of the heart for you, right? And multi-generationally, you've been brought up in it with horses, and your daughter's already looking forward to riding every day and what have you. So from a care perspective, what are some good habits and practices that you've gotten into that take good care of your horses that you think are really important?
Yeah, I mean, aside from BEMER, it's really just knowing them and knowing, what makes them happy, what makes them unhappy, and putting them in situations where they'll succeed. Not everybody wants to do that. And typically, if you're a professional, you don't know that about your horses, but you have someone in your barn that does. So if you talk to the person that's taking care of the horses every day, they can tell you every personality trait about every horse that they're taking care of. And, I think that's really important because that helps you identify if something's wrong with them. The first, sign that there's something wrong with the horse is something changes, right? Yeah. So if their stall's like more messed up, or they didn't drink as much water, or they didn't eat as much, you want to be able to know what their normal is so that you know what their abnormal is, and then you can keep an eye on them. Sometimes they just didn't drink water that night, but I know my horse, she just doesn't drink a lot of water inside. And then some days they'll be like, oh, she drank both buckets. And the next morning she drank this much out of 1 bucket, and there's 2 full buckets in her stall. So, just really knowing that about your horses is, I think, really helpful. And like I said, whatever area of the industry you're in, if you're a professional at the top of the sport, you may not know because you have, 30 horses you're riding every day. But those people in the barn that are taking care of them, they know that. And, that's really important for their health and their longevity. And I wish I had BEMER when I was younger. I wish I knew about it because I feel bad for all of the horses I've had that haven't been able to have BEMER in their lives.
Oh, that's so sweet. And what What advice, Megan, would you give to someone who's maybe someone listening, or, maybe someone who gets this episode sent to them from someone who did listen? What advice would you give to someone who's curious about using BEMER for the horse, but just isn't sure where to start?
Yeah, if they're not sure where to start, I would reach out to BEMER directly. You can go to the website, you can find a distributor in your area, or you can call customer support to be connected with a distributor that would help you with the BEMER horse set. And honestly, just try it. If you have the opportunity, you're at a horse show and you see somebody, or you have a friend that has one, just give it a shot and don't judge it on the first time. Like I said, you can see instant effects and you can feel instant effects. A lot of people we talk to say their horse felt better after the first 5-minute session. Sure. Some other people say it took 3 or 4, but it's really dependent on the horse. And, just give it a shot and use it consistently. And I think that they will be very happy that they brought it into their program.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that, horses, will feel better sometimes after a first session, but maybe again there's a bit of consistency required. But how will feeling better manifest in the horse? What as a horse owner should I look for after someone's been using a BEMER with my horse?
So a lot of the comments we get is just the suppleness. So the horse just feels more maneuverable. It's easier for them to do certain tasks that you ask of them. The way I describe it is you kind of feel like you can ride your horse and you can sit on top of your horse, or you can kind of sit with your horse. And you kind of, that's the feeling that you strive for as a rider, is that you kind of feel like you're one with the horse. And I feel like when I use BEMER to get to that point of where you're kind of melted together and your horse is really, supple and everything's easier. Dressage riders love it because if you've ever seen a dressage horse, the horse uses their neck a lot in those collected movements. So using the neck applicator on those dressage horses really helps them. And that's the biggest piece of feedback we've gotten from dressage riders is they can't live without the neck applicator because of that. And then you look at barrel racers and the horses are, literally like bending around these barrels at a high rate of speed, and they look like they're parallel to the ground. And, to be able to get into those positions and, your horse to feel like it's doing it effortlessly is a lot of the feedback we get.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's huge.
So great.
It's certainly, I was at a meeting, where was it? I think it was in Florida in January, and someone was talking about the equine, the horse set, and just sharing their feelings about their horses. And I genuinely felt like I'd missed out my entire life because of just how much heart they expressed with the relationships that they've got with these horses. And how has life been better for you, Megan, as a result of being surrounded by horses from an early age?
Yeah, I don't know life without horses, so I don't know what it's like to not have one and what it feels like. But, it's a labor of love. It's hard because horses don't live forever, just like dogs. The world would be a better place. But somebody once said to me, they said, if your dog and your horse lived forever, you would have missed out on all the ones after it, which is so true. So, it's hard work, but I love it. I take care of my horses every day. I had a brief period there. The day I had Paisley, I was, 2 days because I was in the hospital so long. The day I went into the hospital, I cleaned stalls, I carried water buckets, and I had a really hard time after I had her because I couldn't do that obviously right away. And, then I had Paisley in February who couldn't go down there. So, it's always been part of me and it's something I love doing. So to not be able to clean stalls, which sounds crazy to some people, but to not be able to clean stalls was really hard for me. So now we're finally at a point where we can go down to the barn together and Paisley loves it. And it makes me feel so much better to be back in that place. And it makes me happy to see how much Paisley loves it because it teaches you a lot, It teaches you hard work. It teaches you commitment. It teaches you about a partnership, teamwork, even though you're not on a huge team. So I think everybody that has horses is really, really lucky to have them. And, if your parents listening out there, get your kid a pony. And if your kids, tell your parents you need a pony.
I'm going to send this to my parents because I think I asked for a pony every single year on Christmas until last year I asked, so they still haven't gotten me one.
I tell my mom that too. She asks me every year, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, the same thing I've always said. I want a pony on Christmas, and I've never gotten one.
Yeah, sort it out. Come on.
Well, maybe this year ask for, like you said with your example, maybe ask for a pony with a BEMER included. That would be maybe the best Christmas gift ever.
Yeah. Excellent. So any advice? I want to go back to this question we touched on earlier about just good practices on a daily basis for caring for the horse, because they are just such intelligent creatures, right? And so sensitive as prey animals. They are very, very sensitive. And you mentioned before just getting to know the horse and understand what their personality is. And when we understand that, we can be more sensitive to when things become out of the ordinary. What else do you think is really, really important for the horse to live a happy, vibrant, fulfilled life for them? What stands out for them?
I think it's also the same. I think when they feel very comfortable in their space because of where they live and what they do and who they're with. You know, my horse, I mentioned, she's really sensitive. So if you have even an ounce of anxiety, anger, rush in you, you can't go within 10 feet of her, because she knows, and she'll just look at you and game over. Like, you won't be able to touch her, especially if she's outside. If you're in the stall, she'll let you touch her, but she just stands there and shakes. So that's been, something that I think is really important with her, is she's in such a happy space because we don't bring any negative energy around her, any anger around her. We don't bring any people around her that are just, a little wound, a little tight, or a little anxious. And we really just keep her in this good bubble. Now, I think when you do that for a consistent period of time, you can get them into situations where they're maybe not ideal for them. So if we took her to a horse show and there's a lot of energy and a lot of people and a lot of horses, then she'll look to you as, kind of her safe space and be like, okay, well, this may not be ideal, but I know that they're not going to put me in a situation that's going to be bad for me. So I'll just relax and, do what they need me to do and trust you. Yeah. So I think that's really important for them. It's kind of what's important for you to look for is what really helps them out.
What a translatable skill that we should all try to do. Just be calm around everyone.
Yeah, I know. How do they pick up on that, out of interest?
It's just their sensitivity to horses. I read something that a horse can feel a heartbeat from like 10, or I think it's 4 feet away. I could be totally wrong if this was not a legitimate fact, but I know there is a distance that a horse can feel your energy and your heartbeat. And that's why horses make great therapy animals, because you see a lot of with the therapeutic riding. They're doing a lot now with PTSD and veterans with horses, because they just help you get into this state. And therapy horses are angels. I mean, you'll see some videos of kids who are nonverbal and you put them on a horse and they're talking, and, it's really amazing. So, they're like magical creatures.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
That's incredible.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining us. We have really been needing to have a conversation about horses and the horse set and equine longevity on this podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us on here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Megan.
Yeah. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll see you later.
Take care.
Thank you.